Okay, welcome everybody. My name is Bo Reimer and I'm director of Medea. Welcome to this Medea Talk with Marju Lauristin and with discussion with Andreas Jakobsson. We just played some entertainment music initially from this 1930s wind-up gramophone, Dizzy Gillespie in the end. So the format for today will be that Marju will speak, and whenever she wants to, she will bring in Andreas as well in the discussion, and we're of course also open for questions for any one of you when you want to put that. And to give some description of Marju initially. So Marju is a member of EU's Committee on Civil Liberties, Justice and Home Affairs. She's also been a so-called shadow rapporteur to the EU General Data Protection Regulation. In 1990, she was the Deputy Speaker of the Estonian Parliament, and between 1992 and 1994, the first Minister of Social Affairs. She has since 1998 been a member of various European political organizations and is currently Vice Chair of the group of the Progressive Alliance of Socialists and Democrats in the European Parliament. And Lauristin is Professor Emerita in Social Communication at Tartu University, Estonia. I'm not sure about Emerita because you're still very, very active there as professor as well. Andreas Jakobsson from Malmö University, docent in computer science and with a special interest in the kinds of questions on data protection that we will discuss today. So, and I could also say this is also part of the Eurocom festival which is going on for these 2 days. Some of you come from that. And with that, I would like to leave the floor to you, Marju, please.
Thank you very much. I'm very glad to be here with you. And I'm very glad to meet at last with Professor Bo Reimer, with whom we have exchanged some mails, letters, I don't know, 2 decades, I suppose. Besides all those things what already was told about my engagement in politics, really, since 1970, it's really last century, deep in last century, I started to teach and research in Tartu University and continuing it until now. Though my main area really is media and communication research, and I am now also involved in big project in our institute in Tartu University, which is dealing with time and space compression in information society. So, though I have been involved in all data collection, data processing all my life, and then suddenly when I was elected in European Parliament 2 years ago, I had to jump to the other side, being all time very critical and angry with all data protection people. Suddenly I deeply jumped in, hold this business from other side, and I had to say I learned a lot. And maybe I can share something from what I have learned in this process today with you. I'm very glad to be here also because one of my best students have been delivered to this institute, Pille Wegerfeldt, who was in our institute. She made her BA, MA, and then the doctoral degree in our institute, and I have been her supervisor, very proud and happy to work with her. And now we are together supervisors, the same doctoral dissertation, which will be in our institute defended on 7th of October. So in this sense, we have this kind of personal bridging between Malmö University and Tartu University. And now, coming now to this data protection issue, then when I joined this team, they were working on this already for years, and really the main text already was voted, and Parliament was preparing itself for so-called trialogue, what in European jargon means that the final decision is made between European Commission, European Parliament and European Council. And in this process, really Parliament is leading. Though our team, what I joined then, was preparing this text of the data protection regulation for talks, final talks with Commission and the Council. And doing that, we went through all proposals coming from Commission initially and then coming from Council. And then we made these discussions, article by article, among ourselves, almost a year. And after that, we had this trialogue process, which also was almost a year. That means that we were discussing practically every word in this text. Text is quite a big one, 300 pages. And that's why, as I proposed for a title of our today's talk, is about the philosophical grounds of data protection, because we discovered in these discussions that for lawyers it could be quite simple just to make some legislation. But when there are the real issues, then they have to turn to the practices, to experiences in the field. And I was happy to be representative of the field. And though we discussed, for example, issues like what are data? What really are data? And when we talk about data, then there is a very important issue about the personal data. What are personal data? It's Article 1. It's what's all about. And it could seem quite simple that, oh yes, it is your age, it is your face, it is your health, it is personal data. But they are not data. They are your qualities. So what are the data about that? And it could be very simple if you say, oh, data is description of that. Number, picture, and so on. But now when we are coming to the new situation with all the big data, profiling, and so on, then that is enormous opportunity to disclose the person behind things which are not describing anything directly about the person. Though how to now make this legislation, in this sense, technology proof, because there was the ambition to make it technologically neutral, meaning that even in the era of the coming new and new opportunities, it should remain meaningful. And that was the biggest issue. And to solve this issue, I was very happy to bring in what we have been say, talking and discussing, I don't know, 50 years ago when I was a student, about the universal qualities of human communication. And try to discover where in this new era of digitalized, technologically enriched communication, there are these fundamentals. Because really, when we are speaking about data protection, then we are not speaking about data, we are speaking really about protection of people. And for that, I remember when I was a young student in 60s, then there was a very good book, I suppose all of our older generation know, that Wilbur Schramm, Human Communication, with a lot of examples about that human communication had been always the same. There is changes in media, there are changes in material side, but communication itself remained the same. Though now how we can prove nowadays, talking with lawyers or talking with industry, that it's really all about the same. It's about human communication. If they say it's machine, it's not human communication, it's machine, it's computers communicated, not people. And then there is a next issue. When we say that it's about humans, it's about human communication, then what about privacy? We protect not data, we protect humans, and then we protect the fundamental right of human for privacy. Why? Why we have to protect that? And what is privacy nowadays? Where is the border? And then we know from our own studies, what we have done, Pille have done, and in our university you have done it, that the privacy has very, very different meaning for young people, for old people, for urban people, for rural people, for people of different religions, different cultures. Then how we can protect privacy if privacy itself should be always defined. And why we have to protect that? If we look that young people, they don't care about privacy themselves in real life, not in digital communication, but on street, compared to what was the border of privacy 30, 40 years, 60 years ago, then you cannot imagine how things have changed. So what is it all about? And then why this privacy protection is the fundamental right. Now we come to the next level. It's all about not only human being, it's human being in society. And then it's protecting human being not from communication, it's protecting human being from intrusion, from violent intrusion in his private life, in his conditions of life, in his family, in his all other things, which form for him this his personal space, his personal being. But then we have to ask, but then what is intrusion? Where are the risks? Why some people feel endangered in situations where others are not? And what we have seen, even in these discussions, what we have in Parliament, you cannot imagine how different our understandings of the people with highest political status and higher education about their privacy. It is so common, it's so correct to talk about that all people are the same and similar, all this national culture thing, they belong to the past, now we are the contemporary society, all are similar, all are equal, all are digitalized, all are equalized, and so on. And then when you have discussion, for example, between me as Estonian and my colleague who is German, then we don't understand each other because she or he cannot understand how we can have electronic ID card. Because it is impossible. Because when I go to doctor with my ID card and then I go to the fuel station, then this guy on fuel station will know what are my sicknesses. And when I try to explain that, that's exactly not the case. Something different. It's very, very difficult. It's very, very difficult. Or then if you take people from Sweden or other happy countries who never have had kind of totalitarian regime or genocide, all of those things, then their understanding of, everyday security, everyday openness are very, very different from people who had gone through all kind of, Holocaust or Stalinism or other religious conflict and who really know how dangerous it could be that somebody know what is your religion or what is your ethnicity. And when those people meet each other, then again, there are absolutely different barriers, absolutely different needs for data protection. Though we had to come to a result which is not only technologically neutral, meaning that it could be the same, as it said now in this text, it is the same level of protection which should be guaranteed as for all kind of information which is filed in traditional way. On a paper, on the perfo cards, in a cupboard, if it is filed and could be structured and systematically analyzed, then it is the same as it is filed in computer or in cloud or so on. That it could be in this sense technologically neutral, but also it could be suitable for people from different cultures with different background. And then we come to kids who are, like we say, indigenous digital citizens and who have no clue about what is their need for privacy when they will be grown-ups. Though a lot of issues, and you see, they're not, at least on surface, legal issues. They are not technical issues. They're deeply cultural issues, deeply social issues. And that is now this situation what we have, and that is really good side of this very complicated and terribly slow process in European legislation, because as even we cannot rely on some kind of solid research. I cannot say that, oh, in this and that book, in this and that research, you can find everything about these issues. No, because we are discussing among ourselves as researchers about these things. Though what could be done, it is only to discover new and new and new cases, new and new and new objections, new and new questions, and try to prove those that the text will be on the suitable level, affordable and understandable and suitable for the needs of different actors. And then we come to industry. I was really coming from university, from provincial Tartu University. Suddenly I was bombed, attacked by telephone calls. Oh, I am the European manager of Google. Oh, we are representation of Microsoft here. Oh, we are here from Apple. All wanted to meet us. All felt in some way nervous. And then the other side, medical profession came. You know, you will prevent and block all cancer research with this. Then came people from national statistics offices. Oh, we want to have statistics done. Then media. I had so much fightings with media because, for example, German publishing industry said that all publishing in Germany will be bankrupted after that. Though you understand that why I said that this slow and complicated mechanism in European Parliament and Commission and Council is in this sense very, very good, because we had time to meet all these very different people. We have time to consider validity or invalidity of this or that claim. We had to test them against each other to find the balance point and so on. And though we were prepared, then we met the council, which came with different opinions of 28 member states to discuss all these things again and again. Now, what maybe is the most important, the core ideas, which then were put on the table and all were like agreed and gathering around them. I suppose the most important is that understanding of the data subject. The data subject as a central, say, actor here, and the rights of data subject, which could be overruled only with a very special regulation or need. Now, as we have heard, and you know that the European Union is now very much really pressing on digital single market. And you know, the commissioner who is dealing with the digital single market, there are two. One is German, Oettinger, but the other is Estonian. He's our previous prime minister. And we can say that when he was prime minister, he wasn't extremely popular. Because he's very technocratic, he's very stubborn, he wasn't at all listening to all sides, but tried to make decisions by himself. Now when he's commissioner of digital single market, it means that he's very strong driver. He's very strong driver. And now they are planning in the coming year, it was said that only in the first half of next year to accomplish almost all drafts because after that already new elections will come, and then it will be very difficult to have something done. Though we are expecting to have new draft directives, like for example on big data, on cloud computing, and all those things. Copyright reform already went out and so on. And for all these new things, this data protection regulation is now one of the cornerstones. And now it's our duty now to check all these new papers against that. But then we have these questions again about data subject. For example, we have data subject which is very clear when we speak about communication between people or even any other traditional way, even traditional digital way, emailing or social media and so on. It's clear we have a face and name, and that's clear who is a data subject. But now with Internet of Things, what I wanted to ask you, as I know that you are here, especially doing that, and here you also. Now, what about data subject? When my refrigerator is talking with my car, then who is the data subject? Is it refrigerator? Is it car? Or is it me? And then when we take this, then what about the nature of personal data? If I have the so-called smart house, and the smart house is reporting when I am at home, when I am not, when I am lighting my lights on, when I'm having my heating on, when I'm cooking and so on, I'm alone or with others. What that? How to prevent that these data will not be used by some gang, for example? Though in our discussions, there was kind of this legislative optimism that it is possible to foresee all those very different situations and to regulate them directly. That you are allowed or not allowed processing in this or that way and so on. There were people who said that we have to inscribe the ban on profiling. I said that, excuse me, how it's possible, because when we speak natural language, then any word almost we use is a result of profiling. If I see that's a woman, I have done my profiling already. How we can make ban on the way of processing? Then we have to think how we can protect people that the results of processing will not be used against the interest and privacy of person. And then there are now some very, very basic principles which are on this legislation. And some of them also have some inner contradictions. At first, much discussed principle of informed consent. Data subject, yes, let's agree that I am data subject even if my refrigerator is talking to my car. I am data subject because it's about me. But then how I can know? How I can give consent? If there is the article that the processing of this kind of personal data, they could be done, and the first condition is by informed consent of data subject. How could I be informed in the situation where data processing is going on at first quicker and quicker and quicker, exceeding any speed of the human processing of data, conscious processing, because it's informed, it's conscious, informed consent. And also if the different processing, say, acts are going on around us all time in different directions, in different contexts and so on. How it's possible that I can give my informed consent on that? What could it mean? Though we came to certain solutions. At first, that it is obligation of the controller, but in case of Internet of Things, who is controller? Who's controller? Then it said that if controller is really giving over the mandate to processing institution, then they become controllers. Okay. Then anyway, there should be then guaranteed some technological way to inform data subject that his or her data are in the process of profiling, of exchange, and so on. That means automated system of information. But we all know, you know, this long text, many pages, 38 pages, and you have to tick, I agree, with conditions of privacy and everything, yeah, on your smartphone. That's not what we meant. So we came to the idea that if you are driving a car, then it's not possible that on each street corner, you come out of the car and read the rules where you can turn, where you cannot. No, you see green light, red light, or yellow light. And though we felt that we were very smart when we inscribed in this text that the European Commission, that's all, it's like, you know, referring to God. European Commission have to develop the simple, understandable, and foolproof system of signaling to the data subject where are the risks where he or she is doing this and that with this device. So you understand that your fridge or your car will show greens and yellow and then all kinds of lights and signs when doing this and that. It's also very, very interesting, but let's see, we have given Commission 2 years to develop that. but that is very good, I suppose, for all kinds of companies, because Commission will not do it itself. They can find the people who are interested in the business, and it could be very good business, really. And here we have the second say answer to this question, which is inscribed in several articles. It's privacy protection by design and by default as really the main solution. And I have to say that industry with whom we met were really quite happy, because they felt that here is a very good challenge. It's a very good challenge. We even had, you know, we have now this idea that Europe have to compete America, I don't know in which way, in all this area. But then it was one of possible ways to have this privacy by design as the brand mark of European technologies. Then the third condition or third, say, safeguard is public interest. But we all know, again, how disputable is public interest. We had very interesting discussions with Olympic Committee. How it is in public interest that they have this and that data stored and then disseminated and so on. Then we had the gambling industry. Then we had all kind of other stakeholders coming, saying that it's all in public interest what they are doing. So we tried to make some difference, and then really what was clear and what is now put clearly in text. And I'm a bit happy that I could give my contribution. It's derogations for the medical research, then in general for science, for scientific research, then for freedom of speech and journalism, and then for statistics, and then for archiving. Now they are there. It's a public interest which is so inscribed. But that means that despite that regulation is applicable directly, it is still said there that national legislation should, in the situation of the concrete culture, because as the cultures are very different, to give explanation what in this country is meant by public interest. And then there are the fourth is a vital interest of data subject. His life is endangered, or some third person is to save a life. And here we come to the very, very tough problem we have, it's security. In general, it is said already in the introduction that the scope of this data protection regulation is not covering the problems of national security. But now again, we have discussion in Europe and at home, everywhere, where it starts and where it's ending. Because, for example, it is clearly said in regulation that the sensitive personal data are about health and everything, and about ethnic and religious belonging of person. But now when you look at the security issues and have the other discussions in our own committee about the fight with radicalization, fight with terrorism, we have more and more wish to control information, to monitor Facebook and to do all those things, where we can drive then this line between the privacy protection, data protection, and security. And that's an everyday discussion we have, and then it cannot be solved in a general, universal way. It can be solved only case by case, but that is really very strong. So we are like, this privacy protection, the data protection is like one angle, and then we have security, and the other is business interest. Because now we had come to the situation where public interest is public interest, and then is coming business and saying that economic growth is public interest. Yeah? That the app industry and all the data digging industry and all it is in public interest. Because we need the growth, we need the jobs, we need all that. And here we have quite serious disputes also. Because now when we are doing a new file on digital content, the contract on digital content, and then will become the big data file, and then will become the cloud computing file, we have to decide these things, because there is a problems connected with personal data, with data protection, and all these things. And we don't have answers, because we are starting to discuss. And that's why I'm very happy that I am today here. I came here with the hope that in this distinguished audience will be somebody who will have some wild and very fruitful ideas how to solve these issues which are concerning these problems, when we have from one side the need to go on with data protection in universal way, and from other side we want to develop businesses which are based on data processing, and where it's very difficult to put in the principle. When I speak on principle, then we have the very important principle in all this data processing is the purpose limitation. When the principle purpose limitation is almost impossible to put in something connected with big data or with some Internet of Things and so on. So how we can solve the problem about informed consent of data subject who has a right to intervene if he decides that it's not in congruence with the purpose limitation, and that his consent is not covering this and that, and he has a right according to the data protection regulation to withdraw consent at any point. And he has to be informed, if there is a profiling, he has to be informed about the fact of profiling. He cannot forbid profiling, but he has to be informed of the fact of profiling, and he has to be explained how the results of profiling will be used. So we are now in a situation where in all this real life, with all these developing technologies and so on, we are really overcome some limit. No, it's like we want to compare an analog and digital systems, and we are really in this legislative, say, process. We're going over this analog regime. We have to understand how we can adapt to this new situation, how we can make our legislation future-proof, and at the same time sticking to these basic principles of the privacy protection and human being protection. And if you say that that's not important anymore, that's all, it's all history, that's a Nazi Germany, it's I don't know, it's the Stone Age, then look at Turkey. Look at Turkey. Look at Russia. Look at other societies where really it could be the data which are collected or processed or digged in social media or elsewhere, even in the supermarket, could be used to make automated lists of people who should be arrested, persecuted, and so on. And really that is a real meaning of the data protection, is to protect, as I said in the beginning, person, individual from intrusion from the part of state and from part of the others, power holders, the companies, and so on. Though I suppose that we had come to the situation where we have to make other kind of legislation, not so much about data protection, but about the data usage. About like, we all can, I don't know, break the window of a neighbor and climb in and take everything which he or she has there. We are not doing that. We are prevented by law and by culture. In digital world, we have opportunity now to make laws, but we have to make laws which are not yet, cannot be embedded in culture because culture hasn't developed. Culture is developing slowly. Digital world is developing quickly, and legislation can be done slowly, means 4 years. But it's all also quickly compared to the culture. Though I think that here we are really in almost impossible situation. So what we can do and we try to do is to forget about technology, to forget about that it is special, to think about the people and to think why and in which situation we have to forbid certain usage, like we are forbidding usage of nuclear power, like we're forbidding of some other things which are dangerous for people. We are not forbidding research, we're not forbidding peaceful usage, but we are forbidding this usage which can destroy people. And I suppose that is the thing. And that's what we as social scientists, or we have to do. We have to name, to prove that these are the risks which could be really deadly. In regulation, we have already named, we have some list of risks. It was done in a situation of brainstorming. Well, sitting around the table and brainstorming, and with all this meeting with stakeholders, trying to pick up the possible risks, where we say that in this situation, what we have put there, it's needed to have the risk analysis and the right to intervention from part of data protection supervisors, so on. But that's very soft all. In the cases of deadly risks, which could emerge very quickly, it's not enough. It's a long process. Though it is really becoming very, very, say, urgent, because as I said, Commission is pressing on legislation, on digital single market. It is pressing to speed up this legislative process. And it could be, in this sense, quite problematic what will come out from that. So, that I almost used my time and our time. Now, at first, can you answer to my question about the Internet of Things? How do you imagine here those relationships between data subject, data controller, data processor, and problem connected with the right of data subject to intervene, to give or not give consent, and to control the process itself?
Thank you for letting me on with an easy question. Yeah, as you can notice, this is a truly difficult question. An important one, though. I mean, it is a problem. I mean, if you take the Internet of Things as an area, a major difference between Internet of Things and ordinary internet computing, which we've done for, I don't know, some 30, 20 years now. I think a major difference is that in Internet of Things, there is actually a thing which is another thing separate from a computer or a smartphone. And you don't only have one thing. Every person will have, I don't know, I have maybe 10 or 20 things today, and I'm guessing I'm not alone, and in the future we will see an increase in the things that people have. And all of these things, they collect information that can be connected easily to me as the user. And this information, I have no control whatsoever. What is being collected, what is being processed, what is being transmitted out to God knows who other actors out there in cyberspace. And I can only hope that they won't misuse it or miscredit me or anything of the sort. So I think that this is in your talk here, in your way of describing this area, you're pointing to a number of really important, crucial factors, which I have in the role as a computer scientist actually forgot about in a way. I mean, if I look into the roughly 10 years that I've been involved in research, I can say that I started out looking at privacy invasive software in free software that you could find easily downloadable online. It could be file sharing applications. I don't know if you remember, but in maybe 15 years ago or so, file sharing was a really big issue. And such free software often bundled other types of software components that collected information about what the user did on his or her computer, what web pages he or she visited. And this information was aggregated and then distributed back to unknown third parties on the internet, which collected the information and returned often spam ads, either at the web pages that you were visiting or you ended up with an email saying that buy a boat. We know that because you've browsed on your internet for boats. So in those times, I started moving into the area of privacy, and I noticed immediately that there were a lot of privacy advocates that were really angry with this development. As you said, the privacy advocates, they were very careful about displaying how angry they were with the fact that people's right to privacy were intruded in this way, really harmful way. I mean, not the harmful way. I mean, and then I go on, and these voices, the privacy advocates, they were really strong. And I go on about my research, and the voices, they tend to become less strong, less shouting, and just one day I realized that there are basically no voices heard anymore about those privacy initiatives. So what has happened? So I think that, this has become, we have become, as users, we have become accustomed to getting our privacy, in this sort of privacy, I mean, invaded, and we're also pretty fine with it. I mean, Facebook arrived during this time, and Facebook is entirely based on personal information about its users. Google the same. I mean, personal information is the new oil, as someone said a few years back. So in that sense, I'm very happy to hear you talk what you talk about and to have you here today, because you showed to me that there are some voices still out there that are interested in finding ways to protect people's right to privacy. Because in my opinion, privacy it's a very ambiguous concept, of course. It can mean almost anything in my experience. But I would say it's a right. And I think that this right needs to be guarded if the civilization that we have become accustomed to is to continue to flourish. But back to your question. What was it? How to preserve privacy in this modern age of Internet of Things?
My answer is looking now what we have done and what we plan to do and what we cannot do. What we certainly cannot do is to go and lead each person and protect him personally. What we can do and what really is included in, I suppose, in all that is to raise awareness of people. To raise awareness of people about the privacy issues as such. Because like it's visible, we have so far away from wars and all those bad things, and we don't imagine that they could come so close to us quite suddenly. Because, like I said, for me, privacy protection is protection of people from the evil intrusion. And evil intrusion could be by criminals. That's one thing, really. They can have information about your house and so on, but it also could be by the state, or it could be by the some kind of enemies. And I suppose the importance of privacy, it's have to be connected with the other side of thing. It's freedom, because privacy is guarantee of freedom. Right for privacy is guarantee that you can speak what you think, you can do what you want, you can live life you like to live, and that is freedom. Because where there is no privacy, there will be fear of intrusion, fear of unknown source of intrusion. And it's very much depending on the situation in society. And in Swedish society, understand it, Swedish society is very, very relaxed. When I was first time in Sweden, and I have to say I have been here since '79 because parents of my husband were living in Ystad. I have been in Skåne very often. Then first time when we were here, we were absolutely, say, even shocked that people don't have curtains on their windows. And for us, it meant that, they don't afraid of strangers. We, living in Soviet system then, we even closed our personal windows, our eyes. We didn't look at other person in order not to give other person opportunity to read in your eyes what you're thinking, that maybe you're not thinking in a proper way. The people who are coming from this kind of totalitarian experience, they have instinctive privacy, because they have lived in life where privacy has been endangered every second. People like here have forgotten what could it mean. Average person in Europe is in between of this. And from other side, we are now open to new threats coming from countries, from cultures, from societies which are living under absolutely different conditions, where the privacy is not imaginable in this way. Privacy in open. And for that, now I come to the very burning issue, the problem of hijabs and burqas. Because what we want to create is the electronic hijabs and burqas. And when in European society people don't understand, for people coming from the other part of the world, their way to protect their privacy is connected with the way how they're how they're dressed and how they behave. Then I suppose that we now have to look at these situations with a comparative eyes and then look at these universals which are behind of that. This personal need for security, personal need to be private, it could be expressed in very different ways. And now when we speak now in digital world, then we have again to understand where there are the real threats to privacy and where they are not. Because certainly, if you say, imagine people living in Stone Age in caves, there was no privacy in some way. But in some time of the day, there was absolute darkness, which also guaranteed absolute privacy. So there, it's very different. So we have to take into account that the privacy issue is contextual. It's contextual, it's connected with the democratic, say, processes, connected with cultural processes and so on. And if we want to have this universal human rights and have to say that also for people from other cultures, the universal human rights is the same, the privacy is the same, then we have to take it into account that it could have different forms. But in digital world, I suppose, that's connected also namely with that here we have to have the culture of digital world, education, awareness, and this awareness which also is the opportunity to discuss with people where they find that they are endangered, why they are endangered, and then what should be provided as the protection. We tried. I suppose that this text, what now European institutions have created, is a good start. It's a good start, but that's not put in a stone. It's a human text. It could be changed. It could be not very quickly, but it could be amended. And now it will be tested because it will be fully implemented since May 2018. So we have more than a year to test, to try to look at those implementations, the technological implementations, so on. And then come further, because from other side, for example, all things are going much more slowly than we imagined. I'm personally very clearly convinced, coming from Estonia, that without all European electronic ID, this electronic single market, digital single market will not work properly, but we are very far from that. If we speak with Germans or with other big nations, they are very far from idea to have this kind of universal electronic ID, though I suppose that it also is kind of, say, reality check, which will go on.
So in Swedish, we actually don't have a translation for the word privacy.
Yeah.
So it to many Swedes, privacy. I think it's the same in Germany, for instance, and probably in some other countries as well. So privacy is, as I said, an ambiguous concept. So I'm wondering, what would you say privacy is? What is privacy to you? What is the meaning of the concept of privacy?
Yeah. In Estonian also we also use privatsus. It's also the privat. It's the same. It's privat. It's not a genuine language. But when we as I said, for me it's the protection from intrusion.
Reasonable. I usually think of it as, well, when I started privacy, I started studying it, as I said, roughly 10 years ago or so. So I read a lot of papers and books on the subject. I, for instance, came across a paper that was published in the Harvard Law Review in, 1887 or something like that, by two guys. They were named Warren and Brandeis. And they were saying that privacy, I think the title of the article was "Privacy is the Right to Freedom." But in this article, they stated that privacy, and here comes the definition, and privacy is the right to be let alone.
Yeah.
How do you...
Yeah.
You agree?
Yeah. That means really, what I mean by intrusion is not intrusion in physical way, but you have your personal space. And your personal space is a space where you can be yourself alone, not caring about the reaction from the environment, other people.
Well, I think it's great because it's so short and simple, and it also works in many various spheres of information or context, as you say. Not entirely sure about the culture that you have, because as you say, when you talk about privacy from a European perspective, culture plays a vital role here in both the definition but also the interpretation of what rights follow the right to privacy.
Yeah, but what I mean when I stress the culture, namely that we need this kind of a set of taken for granted rules in the digital world, which cannot be legislated, which are created by interaction between people in this world. Though that we will not use some things we could use, we will not do some things we could do because we feel that that's not right to us. It's come back to us in a way we don't like.
And taking this further, I also do some research. We have a research project on security and privacy in smart connected homes. You named a few examples from this domain. And there we use the interpretation of privacy as in conjunction to what is said in many sort of old books like the Bible and the Quran, etc., where they interpret the meaning of privacy as what goes in the house stays in the house. You know? It's also, and this is something that I think most people, I'm not sure, I think that most people from the world would comply with. What goes on in the house stays in the house.
Yeah, but there is a problem. And the problem is about what I asked, that who is controller? Who is controller?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So when you take that notion into and put that into the context of your, because if you take your traditional physical home without the digital smartness or the connectedness that comes with it, you're pretty sure that you feel safe. I mean, I have a house, I feel pretty safe there. I can see and easily follow if anyone is looking through the windows at what I'm doing, for instance. But when there is a smart connected home, that is not the case anymore, because you have a TV that's connected, you have probably some surveillance cameras in your smart home security system, you have you might have other stuff that's connected, your fridge, for instance, that's connected, your car is connected, and as a user, you have no way of knowing or controlling who is watching me and what is he or she doing with the data that is collected about
that is the very, say, important situation. But here, I suppose the culture and also legislation will develop case by case. Now we have very, say, important case, the Schrems case, yeah?
No, sorry.
You
Please tell
know
me.
Schrems case. No. Schrems case is the student Maximilian Schrems, yeah, who had a lawsuit in the European Court of Justice against the institution which was called Safe Harbor, which guaranteed that data which were transferred from Europe to US were not used in an inappropriate way outside. And then he got the signal that his data, which were they stored in this the system, they were used by American say agencies. Yeah, and he sued in European Court of Justice, and he won. And the result was that whole Safe Harbor institution was closed down in a day after the court decision. There was the billions of money, there was hundreds of businesses which really were overnight out of the system because the European Court of Justice said it is not legal, it should be closed because it is not guaranteeing privacy, not guaranteeing protection of personal data. And now we are trying to have, not we, but Commission is trying to do new system. And now there is a very interesting new term, Schrems proof. And that means that this kind of case where some individual who is discovering that his data are misused against them, and now this new system of data protection is showing how then he can look for the protection and where are the rights of the different levels of the system, and there are now enormous fines. There are fines for the big companies up to 2 million euros. Or 2% of their, even more, but 2% of if they're really big firms, 2% of their year's turnover. And that means for a company like Google, there are huge fines. And it means that if there will be one case where you discover that from your smart house, the data have been collected and retained, which is against the purpose you thought that the data collected, it's not to make your life better, but it's in order to have other things done, then you can find that, and you can then use all these means. You create the case which then will change something very important in the system. And I suppose that is the beginning of this, as I say, new culture, because more and more people will learn how to protect themselves, their rights. Because without that, without people intervention, nothing will happen. Because nobody can protect you if you yourself is not understanding that you need protection. And that is this awareness about the privacy, awareness about the means, awareness about who is using your data. And it's all now in this new regulation put on paper how to do that, and the obligation to inform, obligation to be receptive to the claims and so on.
Will be very interesting to see how this new regulation plays out, I think. Yeah. In the late 1960s or so, there was this computer science pioneer, Joseph Weisbaum, who made the point that protecting data is relatively a simple task. Protecting privacy, which he made the metaphor to protecting privacy, is really protecting the data shadow of a person. That's a whole different ballgame. So having said that, I just want to turn to the audience and say that if you feel like I'm not delivering as sharp questions that I should, I think you should raise your arm and help me ask Marju here some really interesting questions. So don't be shy. If there is a question, I will run with the mic. Oh yes, our industrialist. Here you go.
Thank you. My name is Marcus. I help run a company who happens to collect a lot of data. Private data, possibly. First of all, thank you. I think it's been very informing, and also it's good to, come out and think about these in a bigger perspective, because I think when you run a business, you are very focused on some details. The safe harbor breakdown was a nightmare in terms of talking to our larger customers. Because all of a sudden it became very important, like where is the data? Like how are we even gonna, previously there was a way to manage it, now no one has a clue. So that is definitely causing some pains. I have like a lot of questions, but I think it's from the, I don't know where to start. I think the informed consent part is a challenge. So we build a product that where we try to substitute very complex alarm systems or cameras to know what's going on in your home, so you can know what's going on in your home when you're not there. It's kind of a lightweight alternative to a home alarm system. And we do that by looking at a lot of different sensor points. So we collect temperature, barometric pressure, energy levels of the sound, in the space. We look at ambient light, and a lot of these are all pooled together to determine very specific events. So we can detect when the door is opened without like actually sitting on the door, knowing that the door opens. The product has no interface except for a button. Like you can press it and that turns it into a configuration mode. There is an app, of course, where you can look at some of the data and you get some information for it. But we are trying to move away from that. Like we want to the main interaction of, or the main use case is only if something really happens. So you want to completely remove most of the interaction unless something happens. Meaning you don't have any, well, soon, or our goal somewhere is to not have any like visual or like like confirmation. Like we have, although already only on paper so far, a way to send it to you pre-configured for your account, like pre-configured to you. So you would like literally just take it out of the box, install it, and it's done. So there is no need to like, except for the point of purchase, accept the terms in some way. How do you maintain informed consent in such a scenario? Or how do you even like provide it? So I think it's hard when you try to design a user experience there? Like how do you, or are we limiting, which I think we are afraid about, like if you remove or if you impose certain design constraints, like you have to have a UI to be able to present the text. Like if we don't want the UI, like because we're trying to get rid of the UI, or like embedding the UI or whatever you call it, like how to manage those situations? I think that is an open question, like the design versus informed consent.
That is, in this sense, in the present regulation, regulated using this contractual situation. Because if you have the contract with a customer who is a data subject, that you provide a service, as I said, that's very simple really, the result is visible. You provide a service, and to provide this service you need this and this and this kind of data or action, yeah? And then you have this contract, it's mutually binding, and you stick to the contract. So now there is a problem that really, according to this regulation, you should, in this contract, also give information, what kind of information you're gathering. And also that you're using this only for the purpose of giving the service. And if it is there, then it's okay. You shouldn't each moment inform. You have the contract which is covering the whole activity. And if you're sticking to that, and if the data subject has no feeling that some of those data have been leaked, or you have been given them to some third party, then it's all okay.
So I think where it then maybe becomes more complicated is when you have the intentional and the sort of unintentional consequences of data. So there's, like, we can say what data points we collect, but then you start to combine it with other things, and all of a sudden, like, we're able to learn from not only from a specific user, so we can profile one installation, but we can learn from multiple users and apply that knowledge together, and all of it, and which we may not have thought about when we started. So we have already have cases of this where we have collected data, not knowing later, much later, that we can also use it to improve algorithms.
There is a special provisions about that. If you look at that, about developing the service and so on. Though if it's all in this frame of this agreed service, and you develop the same service using additional data collected from other and so on, then it's all okay. It's called also in the limit of mutual expectations, or legitimate expectations. It was also one of terms very much discussed. This, what is legitimate expectation? But it was like taken for granted that there is a really honest relation between the service provider and the customer, and really service provider is providing this service he's promising, and customer really knows what he or she is gaining from that. But if you are breaking that, if there is some kind of data breach, and customer is discovering that there was a data breach, then there will be intervention, which could be quite serious.
Hi, my name is Susan, and I'm a professor here. I'm not an industrialist, but I want to open out the debate. My background actually is in dance and philosophy, and I work in media, but always providing an embodied perspective. So my question for Marcus would be, why is there a design assumption that the interface has to be invisible or transparent? Given the difficulties we're now facing regarding personal freedoms, regarding privacy, I think we have to unravel some of our unquestioned design assumptions. That's an aside. But my real question or comment, or my earlier question or comment for Marju, is more than expecting our systems to protect us, and more than giving consent or not, do we actually have the right to obscure our own tracks? So to enact our own practices of encryption. And this would be, for me, it's a question of opening the conditions for the possibility of performing encryption or of being obscure. If we can no longer trust our systems, I think we have to still put pressure on our systems and our legal structures to provide protection. But I think we also have to start thinking in terms of how we can actually provide our own little traces of obscurity. And I'm wondering if within the systems, within your understanding of it, if we were to take on data obfuscation ourselves, perhaps by hacking into our own homes, by creating our own layers of obscurity, by using browsers like Tor, would we automatically trigger some sense of being suspect? So do we have to just put our faith in the systems around us, or can we start enacting our own encryption practices?
Hmm? It's very difficult to answer. It's a very complicated issue, really.
From my point of view, I would say yes, definitely.
Kuule, Pille, kas sa said aru täpselt, mis sa küsid? Ma ei kuulnud hästi. Ei. No? I suppose that there is no limits for the personal, say, activities, unless they are not intervening with the privacy or interest of other people. It's like always.
I have.
No, and that's by the way, a very important question when you look at the children. And here we had a very long discussion about rights of children and rights of children to protect themselves from the parents' intrusion.
My name is Kiran, and I'm very happy that you said privacy by design is what you people are thinking. It's a very novel approach. But I also want to ask a very pertinent question, because I'm a habitual data scientist. What happens if a government itself starts getting into treaties? And what happens to these legislations? Like, for example, now there is a TTIP treaty which is going to come, or something is going to happen between US and European countries, which is going to be signed by different entities. What happens to these type of laws, whichever you pass, and how those companies will be held responsible tomorrow if something goes wrong after you implement this privacy laws? Are they going to be accountable? Who is going to be held responsible for those type of things? I'm really curious about that to know.
So that's a question of the third countries then?
Yes, exactly.
Non-European countries.
I think there is a treaty between Europe and US which is going to happen, which is in the negotiation. TTIP or TTP, I don't know what the abbreviation is. If those, what happens to those type of treaties, and how these type of laws will be enforced on those type of companies, which they are going to come and do the treaty between US and European countries?
Yeah, that's a very, very practical issue, and we are just now going through very difficult talks. For example, with US, not concerning this kind of business data, but concerning the law enforcement data. The called umbrella agreement is discussed with the United States, and there is a problem that they have a different legislation which concerns the right for judicial redress of persons compared to Europe, and these incompatible systems of law, and where there was the discussion, and it was clear that Europe will not agree to give America this kind of like approach to data without some changes, then they really may change the legislation about judicial redress for the citizens of EU, which was equalized to judicial redress with citizens of America. But we still have there a problem because they did not include the non-citizens of EU who are living in EU as permanent residents, who in EU legislation have the same rights. But in American legislation, they were deprived of the same rights. And though this paper or this agreement is on the table, not signed, and discussion is going on. And then it's clear that when we will have this implementation process, then there is article in about the data transfers and cooperation with third countries, and then there is given some time threshold to put in place new agreements or adapt the existing agreements so that these rules will be compatible to each other. What concerns now these big companies who have their own branches in Europe, like we have all Apple and Google, and like I said, that they all were very interested, then they really, as they are quite dynamic, then they were really quite apt to take that in, and maybe even to be quicker than European companies to implement these new rules. But when we go to the I don't know, China and some other faraway countries or Korea and so on, then yes, there could be quite say important process of adaptation.
Hi, very interesting. My name is Stefan Justin. I am a professor in computer engineering, but I'm also an industrialist nowadays. So, first a comment about privacy in Sweden, and then a question about a difficult emerging case, I think. This spring I had a lunch chat with an CEO, and this issue came up, and said, yeah, I have 3,000 followers on Facebook, I have 3,000 friends on Facebook. And his sidekick said, yeah, you post everything there. And I said, well, do you really? And said, well, actually, I'm never actually saying anything. I can't. Because that would mean business lost. So he preemptively whitewashed his own Facebook postings to make them opaque to the world. And I met a lot of people starting to do this because we are so exposed all the time, and there's a growing number of people being very, very aware of all the prying eyes. So that's just a comment on the cultural part. Now to a question, a technical question. Now imagine in a few years' time that you order the service of artificial intelligent butler, deep learning all the way. And the butler is there to help you out in all possible ways. You sign up. But what does that mean? It's self-learning, self-developing, and suddenly it feels like you probably want to party, you probably want to do this or that. It posts things on the internet for you, and your personal privacy is completely shot to pieces. And the company said, we never knew we could do that. How would the service agreement, a legal contractual arrangement be possible to make in such a case? How do you address these questions? Because I heard about a company this morning actually, a firm in Switzerland that uses deep learning to write patent applications, and they only use a guy or girl as a placeholder to surpass the legal structure. So these things are coming, and how could we handle these questions in such a scenario? To me, well, I'm probably too boring or something, but I can't imagine how to solve it right now.
Yeah, you asked namely the question what I had also, this question about how in this situation with learning machines to solve this purpose limitation. And we really are discussing that now, because as we have now on table this new directive on, as I said, digital content, the digital contract on digital content. And there the first thing is that should we include in digital content also content created by Internet of Things, not by people. And then what about the artificial intelligence which could learn and develop itself and then which could not be predictable in the initial moment? We don't have answer. We don't have answer. And you see, I agree. I come back to that thing that we have to turn to our own experiences as human beings. When we're dealing with kids, we don't know what they do when they grow up, but we know that they have to follow certain rules and laws, whatever they will be doing. Though there are some things which should be allowed or forbidden or regulated, but there are a lot of things which are never regulated. And I suppose we have to learn to deal with this environment, with smart environment in the same way. But here is a problem about responsibility, because there could be malicious developer. And here it is now the problem of this kind of new criminology.
Just a brief comment on that is that I thought about that question as well, and what I have no answer for you, but
No answer.
what I've come up with is that I fear that we said that privacy is the same as civilization, it's the same as freedom. But in that respect, I fear that privacy is dead. We don't have privacy anymore.
But you see, what is the main difference? When you mentioned Butler, when we talk to each other and meet each other, and so we have this, say, biological capacity and even pressure to forget. Now we put in regulation this right to be forgotten, and it was met with a great astonishment that how it could be achieved. But that is just in parallel with this, that in the real life we have this, say, right to be forgotten. We have, for example, the rule, or say, not rule, but a kind of habit, that if I made something bad and then I apologize, then I presume that after this, when my apology was accepted, then we mutually forget about the thing. We can remember it somewhere, but it's not any way so actual. But machine doesn't have this kind of feelings. Though we have to have something which will teach machine also to take into account this say, the retention and remembering, because that is a main difference. That's main difference. This capacity to remember and capacity to forget, they are different in machine system and in a human system.
Hi, I had a brief moment of confusion about this narrative that seems to have been naturalized earlier on in the talk about how there's some sort of need for compromise with privacy eroding corporations with individual interests, and why? Why do we need to kind of negotiate or engage with industries which are predicated on violently destroying ourselves? Why do they need to be engaged with? Why do we need to write legislation that enables them to do the evil shit that they do in more meticulous ways, instead of just not engaging with them, just denying them their existence in the sense that a corporation can exist at all? So I feel like I missed something. Why are suddenly Google managers have your phone number?
I didn't understand the question, really.
Okay, I'll be more explicit, I guess. Why do corporate interests need to be taken into account when privacy-enabling legislation is drafted?
Yeah, because as we have this whole field with very multiple players, then when we make legislation, we have to take into account some balance between different players. We cannot exclude some players from the field. Because we presume that also these the corporations or businesses or whatever, they also have legitimate interests. They are not some, say, evil players. They have some legitimate interests. They have something to add to our well-being, to our efficiency, and so on. And then we don't take them as for granted as some kind of source of evil. And I think that is the more fruitful approach, because in dialogue with representatives of these big corporations, really we can learn a lot. That means that from our side we have to be quite, say, also smart and sensitive concerning lobbyism. We have to make difference between the direct lobbying and the mutual dialogue, and then that you can do only when you have opportunity to talk with very different players. Because when I talk one day with Google and other day with Association of Consumer Protection and third day with medical professionals and the fourth day with academics and so on, then in this multiplicity of the perspectives, there could be found this kind of say, healthy core, or a core which could be profitable so that it will create a better situation for everybody. But if we exclude big players from this dialogue, then they also exclude some common interest from their activities. And then we create the conflict, which is not good for anybody.
I think there's a fundamental disjuncture, but just to comment on the 2 points of legitimacy and then also exclusion. So in terms of legitimacy, I guess my question was, why are they seen as legitimate players? I don't see a reason to accept their legitimacy of existence, because their very model is predicated on erosion of privacy. So it doesn't make sense for me to legislate milder controls or stricter controls when the actual entire business model is predicated on user data. So that's the question of legitimacy. And then to the question of exclusion, you say that we can't exclude them, but in allowing a specific corporation that allotment, that seat at the table, your time, right? We have, let's just approach it in a very fundamental temporal aspect, so we don't get into the ethics or the politics. We have a limited amount of time. If you grant a Google executive 10 minutes of your time, that 10 minutes is in turn denied to anyone who does not have a legal shield behind which to stand with, right? An individual on the street is not allotted 10 minutes of the time, but the Google executive is. So when you talk about exclusion, you have to weigh the amount that's actually excluded in the specter of inclusion. Thank you.
Yeah, Marx wanted to answer. we have discussion between the involved actors, so that
I think it's a very good comment, and I do think that companies do not have all. I mean, we don't start companies because we have bad intentions. Maybe some do. I don't. I think it comes back a little bit to what Susan was saying before as well, in terms of why no UI, or why like how do we design our products and so on. So I won't talk too much about the exclusion part. But a lot of the services that we use today, they add some value to us. That is why we use them. Like we believe Facebook is, like, we use Facebook on a day-to-day basis because we want to stay connected to friends or former colleagues or whatever it may be. And that applies to other services too. And so in our case, like, why we choose to get rid of the UI is because people do not in all cases, or the use cases we design for, don't want that type of interaction, or they are willing to give up some form of maybe privacy in order to receive a value which outweighs the cost of giving up some of that privacy. In our particular case, that so we often compare ourselves to a camera that you would have in your home alarm system, and a lot of people feel the image being taken of me is much more compromising than 500 milliseconds of audio data. That audio data also never leaves the device, so it's interesting than who is the controller and how do you control, like I think that is interesting, like how do you guarantee that the data stays where it's supposed to be and how do you monitor that? But where we design with the intention of providing a value, otherwise we'd go bankrupt and like there would be no point in doing it. So there is, I think from Google and the others' perspective too, they are here because they want to do business and they want to help and they grow because we use them. Then I think there's a different discussion on when they become too powerful and might abuse their power, which is harder.
There is now in Europe, I have to say, in general, in European Union, growing willingness and readiness to counteract to this kind of monopolization of certain services and powers connected with that, and also this kind of information monopolies. One part of that now emerged with this Apple case. With this tax evasion case, which really meant that Europe is showing some teeth concerning this kind of monopolies. And the other is that now with the same data protection, what we are doing, like I said, that we are encouraging European companies to step in with new technologies which are, say, more strong on this side. And also we try to give, for example, the privilege on the markets, in European market, to companies who are achieved better solutions. In this regulation, there is even special article about the European certificate for privacy guaranteeing technologies, which will be then acknowledged on the whole European market and then will have a clear privilege. So we try to intervene here and to give way and to give opportunity to other players and European players especially.
Hi, I have a question which might be more of a philosophical question. But we talk about the Internet of Things. We talk about being recorded. We talk about having a smart fridge. We talk about the car driving itself. We talk about the phone tracking everything. But in the end, you already today have an active choice. And the more you let devices help you, to be honest, the more stupid you get. It is as simple. How many today can drive in a big city without a GPS? Compared to 30 years ago. So my question is really, you talked about awareness. Now, these consents done by very expensive lawyers, probably, can be defined in a way so that the new law is, you meet the requirements. You protect the data, hopefully, but in the end, you come back to people having an understanding about what they actually consent to, instead of just saying, okay, I press yes.
Yeah, at first I completely agree with your first statement that the more we delegate to all kind of new technologies our own capacities, the more we're becoming, so you said stupid, but that's old good McLuhan. That was a basic knowledge when I was a student, and I have lived my life with that. That's very important knowledge. But from other side, when you do the special law, then you're not, say, providing people with recipes for all cases and all their needs, and you are not curing them from their stupidity. You just try to prevent that they will be harmed by certain things. Though I suppose again I come to this my favorite point. It's a problem with education and culture, and it's also a problem with the mastering this environment. And I think that there is more and more the differences between people in attitudes concerning all these technologies. And now I come not to the European Parliament, but to research we are doing in our university, in our institute. We, for example, have now the big project on the impact of digital technologies on time and space compressing and information usage by people. And I myself, I'm involved in namely this differentiation between people in their patterns of usage and patterns of time and space structures. And it's obvious that there are people who consciously don't agree, don't go along with many of these new trends. They find themselves some other opportunities. They turn to other ways of life, they turn to other ways of culture. But there are others who surf quite freely on these waves of different intersecting technologies, not losing the control over their lives. And then there are a third group, which unfortunately is growing, who is really blindly going along with these new technologies and losing more and more of themselves and losing more and more of links with the culture and so on. They're very different things. And it all is connected with need to have the educational system which take into account these new realities, because we are teaching still our kids and teaching still our students very much in a way and in a frames which have been developed in times of very different environment. It's like we teach only Newtonian physics, not taking into account relative theory. So we have to teach other things. We have to teach other ways. We have to teach other type of critical approaches and analysis compared to what we are doing now, starting from primary school, even from kindergarten.
That was a good picture, the idea of patterns of usage that accounts for the past and the present. But now we know with network analytics and predictive algorithms that the data subject actually includes what we are likely to do next, but we haven't done next. Whether it is you bought something on Amazon, you might be likely to be interested in the next thing. Whether it is the Internet of Things in our home, you switched your lights off at 11 p.m. every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday for the past 5 weeks, you're likely to continue doing that. Have these discussions about predictive behavior based on big data entered any of the legislative considerations?
It's not yet discussed in legislative. It's more discussed in academic circles. I think that I'm afraid that really, as I said, this legislative process is under big time pressure now, and it's not yet absorbing this kind of very complicated dilemmas.
Yes, my name is Jonas Dennemal. I work with Advenica company doing information security things, devices. I think there's an interesting thing in what you said previously about companies not being evil. I don't think they are. However, there is an imbalance between the strong commercial incentives to provide new cool things, as the majority of the population would happily accept a new cool gadget without really thinking about the privacy concerns. And I see this legislation as very much adding something on the other side of the scale, where there was nothing previously. 80% of the people, or whatever percentages is, would accept those cool things. And then we have the minority on the other side, as we've heard in the discussion here, saying that we should go a totally different direction. So my question is, how much of this discussion is the main purpose to raise awareness among the population or to change behavior among the data controllers or data processors?
Both. Because it's overall educating process. And in this sense, I am quite happy with this text, what we have. Because we have added in this text a lot of details. The problem is that nobody is reading the text. because everybody has some, say, idea that these and these things could be there, and they have very simplistic understanding, and that it could be that they will run into big difficulties when they don't foresee that. Because really in the text, if you look at this text, there are a lot of detailed even issues raised as for data subjects where what they have to know, what they have to ask, how they have to act in the situation of risk, where they could have protection, and also obligations for the technology developers and for the controllers and for the processors, where they have to stop, where they have to make risk analysis, where they have to be responsible, who is responsible in case of data breach, and as I said, there is a really huge fines, and that is really pedagogy of money. that when there will be real strong cases, then maybe people will wake up and say, oh, I didn't know, it's something there I should know. Because even in Parliament, I have to say, I'm sorry to say, that the work which have been done on data protection is really, I really feel it is good work. It has been done with a very clear knowledge and wish to give the best for people. But majority of our colleagues also haven't looked at this text. And then when they discuss, for example, in Committee for Commerce or in some others, these new things, then they suddenly discover, there could be problems with data protection. What is there? We should regulate something on that. Then we say, it's already regulated. You have to look at this. Now we have this first file, which is on this digital content contract, where we now try from our committee to put into this text, which is done by IMCO, by this cooperation and the economic side, to put the references concretely on articles, which is the problem with data protection which should be looked at. Because if they say that, it's enough to put reference that without prejudice to data protection regulation, this should be implemented, then it will not mean anything, because these people don't read the text. They don't know the data protection. So that is a problem of culture. And why I am again come back to that. We need the data protection culture will be implemented in the schools, in the faculties of informatics. My grandson has master's degree in informatics. Freshly, I asked him. He just graduated. That how much have you been taught, or did you have courses on the data protection? He said, in some general course we had one topic. There are a lot of engineers, the Internet of Things developers, and so on, who haven't a clue. Also in law faculties, how much in law faculties is taught data protection legislation? Now in this new situation, we have really demanded that any company which is dealing with big amount of data or which is processing sensitive personal data is obliged to have data protection officer. That means that these people have to be educated somewhere. Where? In which faculty? By whom? You see? So in this sense, the industry is running ahead, we are running behind, and society is sitting and waiting.
Hi again. I didn't say which industry I'm working with. I'm working with NEVs, formerly known as Saab, electric vehicles. And this company is very much into mobility services. And yesterday I had the opportunity to talk to some representatives for the city of Gothenburg about city planning. And very much like in Malmö, there was one professor here at Malmö Högskola who said a few days ago, or wrote a few days ago, that there's a congestion problem. You want more people to move into the cities, you want greener cities, you want electrical vehicles, you want autonomous vehicles, but there's actually a real danger of autonomous driving actually increasing the number of vehicles on the streets and not decreasing it. In order to decrease it, and I'm coming to a question here, don't worry. You need to coordinate it. If the city could own car fleets and the car shows up to drive 3 or 4 people in a more efficient way and all that, it's public good, great. But in order to do that efficiently, the city or someone has to strike a deal with Apple and Google and basically get access to calendars. And then you have public good versus private good. You have public good, and that's good. I mean, I think we could all agree on that. That's a good thing. Environment, city planning, all that, versus privacy. And that's something, at least in Gothenburg, we're all thought of, and they saw it as a challenge, and they didn't see a way around it right now. My question to you is, are there, I guess, at what stage are you having discussions about this at the European level about the public good versus privacy? And this is not law enforcement.
Yeah, you see, that is a really important issue because, as I said in the text, the public good or public interest is taken as granted. If it is in legislation, in national legislation, said that it is public good, then it is public good. But it leaves everything to national legislation. And national legislation very much is rooted in a culture. What is considered to be public good in one place is not in another place. What is European public good? What is European interest? That's not clear at all, I have to say. Though, as now we have come, for example, when we take, now we are going maybe very far away, the issue of refugees. Yeah. Then, as far as I know, in Sweden, there have been done a lot of work to provide information about refugees, about the structure, and also to provide refugees with information about opportunities, so on. But that's not the case in other countries. Could it be European public good that we will have, for example, information taken on the first spot where they are coming in about the structure of this flow, about their the education, the age, and so on? No, we don't have it. Because here is some understanding that their personal data, they should not be collected. We don't have European databases for that. It's up to member states who then will meet already people and they do that. You see, here is a problem. The same with the border guard. There is a problem. You say city planning. You say, but look at the whole transformation infrastructure. Look at the airplanes. It's problems everywhere. So we are coming to a situation, that's my impression now being there 2 years, that Europe is starting now to contemplate about things which could be European public interest. But it's very, very beginning.
Okay, so I think we have one final question here before let's Andreas say something.
Does the legislation cover who is the ultimate beneficiary of the product, of the data? Does it mentions who is the ultimate beneficiary of the data? Like, for example, I use a device like Marcus' device today, and does the legislation mandates the manufacturer to say who is the ultimate beneficiary of this data you are collecting? That's where the crux all about. Because if I'm buying something out of the shelves of some store, if I know where this data which is collected, who is going to benefit from this data? Like, for example, it could be a manufacturer, industry, lobby association, or it could be any government is using that data. Whether that, whatever the legislation you people are making in EU Parliament, whether that clearly mandates saying that you have to show who is the ultimate beneficiary of the data.
Yeah, thank you. There is the difference. If we speak of personal data, namely data which are linked to the identifiable natural person by name, by any other quality, then yes, this person, the data subject, has a right to know who is using data about him or really his data and for which purpose. So this right is given in this legislation. The other way is how he will get this knowledge, but that's obligation of data controller. But now, when we speak about in general, who can benefit from the usage of information, of all kinds of data, then there is the other end of the story. And the other end of the story is that now European Commission is working on the new directive on the free data flow. And what it will be, nobody yet knows. But the idea is that the free data flow, or the access, the more and more access to at least the all data which are publicly, say, owned or publicly collected, that it could be beneficial for everybody. And here we are running into national interests, or into interest of some companies or developers or universities and so on. Though this is starting to be a very big discussion. Now, for example, we had on the table, maybe you have seen it, the copyright reform first draft. In the beginning, when we in Parliament discussed that, not in my committee, but in other committee, Culture Committee, but we had close contact with them, we in Parliament had the idea that this have to be for the benefit of people, for the benefit of users, access through libraries and so on, more and more to all kind of knowledge. What we got back from Commission, it's much more other way around. It's more about providing, yes, also very legitimate authors, intellectual property rights owners, guarantees that nobody will access to this information without paying, which belong to them. So that's an absolutely opposite position. And so we now have to find where is this the solution, because Commission and Parliament are looking from two different angles to the same issue. What about the benefits from access to the open data? Then you see it's again connected with the research, with the academic field, but from other side also with the copyright things. For example, in medical research, when I met with people from medical profession, there from one side is very strong need to have the almost global flow of data, because there are cases where it's need to compare very broadly cases from different countries. But at the same time, there is another way. There is an interest of this group of researchers to have own, say gain from being the first in the field. So you see, it is now, it's opening whole this area. And I have to say that being in communication research all my life, it was time where communication research was something which is quite, say, it was very specific field, yeah, very specific field. Now in this new situation, what I feel there is that communication research, what we are doing, all these things, it is becoming very fundamental to many, many issues. And as I already said, it could be that there could be some kind of decision already made, what then we will have to critically analyze and provide with some different understanding what really is effect of these decisions. But that's life. That's life. But in principle, you know, everybody have to benefit from more knowledge.
Okay, it's 4 o'clock. It's time to finish. Andreas, you haven't had the mic for a long time. Do you want to say something before we finish? Any comments left?
No, not really. But I just want to say I'm very grateful that you helped me asking really a difficult question, an interesting question to our distinguished guest here. So I'm very happy for that. And I don't get to ask her a final question, do I? If it's a short one. Okay, so based on what we've talked about privacy here today, what role does privacy play in the society, say, in 2030? It's a simple question.
What was the question?
What role will privacy play in society, European society?
In 2030.
In 2030. Will we have privacy?
I think that we will have privacy as long as we are human beings. The question is how we achieve that. Where we will find the best best place, best space to be private. And really, if I will say personally, I think that a lot of problems with privacy, privacy protection and so on, are also, in some sense, quite superficial. They are maybe created by situation that too many people really, in reality, don't have privacy. Not that they have something to protect, they even don't have anything to protect, because they have not developed this private space where they can enjoy their personal, say, capacity to think, to act as the real independent and free personality. They are more, you see, following some external patterns and then taking in signals from the environment, and then the privacy is not even the problem. So I think that maybe the privacy protection as an issue will also turn our eyes more inside and to ask what we really have to protect. Do we have anything to protect?
Okay, thank you very much, Marju Lauristin and Andreas. And thank you all for coming here and taking part with so many different interesting perspectives. Thank you all.